The US Secret Service, in its long history of coping with counterfeiters, has never encountered anybody remotely resembling Edward Mueller. Yet Mueller produced just about the worst counterfeit bill ever.
Would you accept that as legal tender?
I'd have to be blind.
It was too awful that even the name of George Washington was spelt incorrectly. But he did not mind and went his lucrative way, spending his funny bill 7 days a week for a whole decade, with no one ever doubting him and suspected the bill. Edward Mueller, in the year 1938, was a 63-year-old who lived with a black mongrel dog in a flat on the top floor of York City West 96th Street. He was regarded as an independent soul and a tough man with a dollar. He managed to accumulate about $5,000, and it was in a bank gathering decent interest at the time. For a while, Mueller made an okay income collecting and selling junk. He had his little handcart, which he using exploring the vicinity of Columbia University, and he collected, swapped, and sold the junk. He always had a little need and just want to make enough income to feed himself and his beloved dog. He used to cock his meals and pick his favorite newspapers and magazines out of the trash cans. After finished reading, he will go to bed, listening to the radio till his sleep. In the new career that he was about to begin his appearance should have been against him. But to be unmemorable is an asset for a person who has been passing fake money every day for 10 long years. Mueller, in fact, was a stocky little man standing 5 feet tall, with a round face and bald head, which he never bothered to cover with a hat. In winter or summer, his shiny head was always visible. But his shortness and baldness were not his only memorable features. He also had no teeth. And just to top it all, there was his attire. He owned only one pair of baggy pants and only one jacket, both torn and patched. The general effect made him look more like a homeless comedian than someone destined to be regarded by Uncle Sam as a dangerous criminal. One spring day, in that year of 1938, Eddie came to that junk business, was falling and not good enough to support his lifestyle. He started thinking about a new way to earn extra money, and because he loved his $5,000 sitting in the bank, withdrawing any money was out of the question. After a simple math, he found his junk business makes him $70 a month. He needed $100 a month to live on, $25 for the rent, and $75 for food and medications. But where to get the missing $30 a month he now needed? The answer came to him immediately. He would start making his own money. All he needs is $1 a day, one at a time. As a self-educated reader, he knew his first step was to visit the library and go to New York City's main public library. He spent 2 weeks visiting the library and reading anything that could teach him about printing and manufacturing money. The Secret Service has long had nightmares about books in public libraries that explain the perspective of making manifesting money, paper, or even coins. The libraries don't have books on the details of assault and robbery and certain other major crimes. But when it comes to counterfeiting, the libraries seem to go out of their way to help people out. Most certainly, this library supplied Mueller with exactly what he was looking for. He did not find it all in one book, but he found it all within the shelves and books. He knew about the engraving tools, copper plates, acids, inks, and paper. Just like his junk business, he made something out of the free stuff out there. After collecting it, he would not touch the money in the bank, so he started saving a little to buy the materials and a used printing press. But why did he not think of making $5 notes, or even $10 notes, instead of the little $1? That was because he had it all figured out. It was to turn out that nobody paid attention to a $1 bill. It was one day in October 1938, when Mueller went to spend his first bill. He used his fake bills to buy a newspaper at a stand near Columbia University. The man took the bill and gave him 90 cents in change, never looking twice at the bill. The fake money was printed on heavier paper. George Washington's left eye looked bleary as if he had a rough night drinking, and the right eye had no resemblance to the left one. It was almond-shaped, and he looked semi-oriental according to the Secret Service report. Even his shirt was stained. Mueller had a few rules. One of them was to never spend more than one bill in the same street for the entire week, but his awful bill reached banks, and they, of course, caught it, and now the Secret Service, now aware of it, and Agent James J. Maloney said, "In all my years with the service, I have never seen anything as crude as this. There was one thing we have to be thankful for, and that's that we will catch this man in practically no time at all." Poor Maloney. He never imagined it would take almost a decade to catch the man behind the bad bill. So, they started a file, and it was number 880, and it became the fattest in the entire history of the Secret Service at the time. A month passed, A good one for Mueller, but a stressful one for the Secret Services, and almost daily, a bill would show up somewhere. Time went on for a few months. They noticed it all in the Columbia University vicinity, in grocery stores, newsstands, tobacco shops, and subway change booths. And that's what made it extremely hard to monitor all places at once. By this time, Maloney had a map in his office, a map to which he stuck a red pin to indicate the hot spots where the ugly bill turned up. Now, he is called Mr. 880, and it is almost a year, and the Maloney map has over 300 pins, but the pins made no sense to any agent, no pattern, but they all believed the man lived not too far from Columbia University. At this stage, Mueller decided to improve his design and the quality of his product, and he started working on it right away. The result was much better than the first one, but after fixing Washington's eyes and cleaning his shirt of dirt, he misspelled Washington's name. When Maloney took his first look at Mr. 880's latest bill, he was kind of happy, and he said, "Now we are bound to close in on him." But time passed. A year passed, then more years, and the Secret Service faced many other counterfeiters. They closed hard and caught gangs of them, but not Mr. 880. In 1943, Maloney was appointed Assistant Chief of the U.S. Secret Service and moved to Washington, D.C. Things didn't improve after Maloney's departure, but Maloney kept calling and putting pressure on his successor, Agent Mike McKinney, sometimes twice a day. By then, there was a small army of agents working on the case, but desperation had set in. Now they have to consider the help of the old-time counterfeiters, men who had served time but none of them could help them or gave any information about Mr. 880 Bill. It was unique, unprofessional, but convincing enough. Now 7 years passed, and Mueller kept reading the newspapers, but they never talked about his bills. Of course, everyone in the vicinity of Columbia University knew about it, because 7 years of bad bills and Secret Service presence cannot be easily ignored. But not a single line in the newspapers. Is the 8th year of his smooth operation, he went to a grocery store to spend roughly the bill number 3,000 after he bought his bread and milk and left with the goods and change when a young man stepped aside to clear the way for Mr. 880. But once he passed the young man, he saw him flashing his Secret Service card to the cashier, asking him to check all today, $1 bill, and the cashier handed him the stack. And here it is, setting on top was Mr. 880 bill. The agent shouted, "Who gave this one to you?" The cashier replied, "Why? It was that little man you passed on the way in. Is something wrong with it?" The agent ran looking for Mr. 880, but he couldn't find him. He went to his office, and he started trying to remember anything. He had been shot, very short, he had been bald, shiny bald, and he had worn baggy pants and patched-up jacket. He had a round face. Fate will deal more cards with Mr. 880 just 2 days later at another grocery store. After he bought his usual bread and milk, he paid and left. But the cashier had another look at the bill after he left because Secret Services were just at his store a few days back. And with his help and the agent memory, they draw a picture, and the drawings backfired. Storekeepers and others in the position of the drawings were too quick to yell for help when they spotted somebody with only one of the characteristics of the little man, who was by now driving the Secret Services crazy. Any bald man between 5 to 6 feet was stopped and questioned by police. But time kept going, and a few days before Christmas 1947, our old man was 73 years old, and in his 10th year of making his best money. He was still in the same 2-room flat with the same dog, and he could keep going with his operation forever. But a real stroke of bad luck solved the case for the Secret Services. Mueller was on his way to spending his daily bill and was out with his junk cart, which he never stopped working, using as it was paying for 3/4 of his monthly income. When we went back to his home and dog, to find both of them had gone. A fire broke out in the building, and the smoke killed his beloved dog. Mr. 880 went to Long Island and stayed at his married daughter's house until he sought a new home. He also took it for granted the fire destroyed everything in his flat, but the equipment and a stack of his bad bills that were hidden in the press were intact. The firemen took everything and left it on a vacant site for the resident, and they seemed not to notice the money at all. Now the luck started to turn on Mr. 880 after the firemen left, and as the same vacant site was used as a playground for the local kids, they found the money and started playing with it. One of them took some home, and his father, unluckily for Mueller, was working at Delicatessens, where one of the bad bills dropped, and he knew all about it. And when the father took it to the Secret Service, they practically jumped joyfully. Now it was a simple matter to trace Mueller to his daughter's home. Mueller confessed, saying, "Sure, I made the bills. I didn't want to break into my savings account at the bank." Maloney finally slept better, and Mueller was sentenced to a year and a month, but he was released 4 months later due to his old age. Hollywood movie makers became interested in his story and paid him $3,000 for permission to make a movie about him called Mr. 880. Link in the description. It wasn't until 1954, at the age of 80, that Edward Mueller departed for another journey.